Hi, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from StreetScores, and we have a lot to talk about today. Now, I'm still working on a full-blown preview video for this Bengals matchup, so stay tuned for that. Probably tomorrow. But either way, today we're talking about how the Washington Commanders defensive coordinator Joe Witt Jr. personally called out Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen. We're going to dive into some advanced stats to truly see how bad of a season they had. Even though Daron Payne has had pressures on both of the only 2 sacks that this team has from both Cleveland Farrell. Also, Kliff Kingsbury's offense has been criticized quite a bit this week, not only by the media, but by players as well. We're going to talk about that. And then, of course, I got to give y'all a big-time injury update for this upcoming Bengals game. Who's out, who's questionable for both teams, all of that. And also, this video is sponsored by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino. You already know that, man. And shouts out to Clutch Points for this background. And before we dive into everything in this video, make sure you stiff arm that like button, stiff arm the subscription button, and stiff arm the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Again, I have y'all covered for everything going on with the Bengals game. I'm coming out with a preview video tomorrow. Like I promised all of my channel members, those exclusive film sessions, 2 or 3 of them will be coming out before we play the Bengals Monday night. I got y'all. Just been very busy this week, but those will be out. Just a quick couple: Brandon Coleman, Johnny Newton, and we'll probably even do a Brian Robinson one as well. And of course, I will be live streaming that entire Bengals game Monday night, so make sure y'all pull up for that analysis. What I'm mainly watching for, breaking everything down. We're going to look at Jaden Daniels' maturation, his development. We're going to take a look at if Brandon Coleman's getting better at left tackle, all kinds of stuff, man. Is this run game as deadly as it seems through the first 2 weeks? Kliff Kingsbury's play calling, all of that live. And without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into this video, man. Let's get it. Adam. All right, so Joe Witt Jr. called out Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen, but the way that he did it, now it's obvious what he meant by this, because he basically cited 4 players who have been playing the style of defense that he wants. He's not even talking about productive. He's not talking about how productive you've been. He's not talking about like stats. He's talking about guys that are going about it the way that he wants them to, as far as like passion and mentality, aggression, things like that, being physical. He pointed out Frankie Louvu, Bobby Wagner, Quan Martin, Benjamin St-Juste. Didn't name anybody else. And then later on in the press conference, he said that the rush needs to be more coordinated, disciplined, and and we have a big problem with gap integrity right now. So those all, I mean, just by the emission of just making sure that they keep Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen out of that list of 4 people that are doing things the way that he wants, lets you know that he's calling those guys out personally. He wants those guys to step up. But we also have some advanced stats as to like, have Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen been as invisible as we think as fans? Like, you know, as fans watching live broadcasts, you know, there's a lot of things that you may not notice, especially in the trenches when you're watching the game. Sometimes you got to go back and look at the all 22 to truly know where everybody has been, what everybody has done. Again, I do want to point out the fact that both of the sacks that this Commanders team has so far this season, both by Cleveland Farrell, were on Daron Payne pressures where the quarterback ran from Daron Payne and ran into Cleveland Farrell. So he deserves some credit for that. But when you look at Jonathan Allen right now, he's 78th in Pro Football Focus grade overall. He's 66th in run defense grade and 68th in pass rush grade, with a 58.2 overall, 53.1 run defense, and a 58.7 pass rush. Then Daron Payne is better, but he's not like what we still expect. It's way better than Jonathan Allen, but I mean, but again, these are Pro Football Focus grades, so kind of take them with a grain of salt. But 69.3 overall Pro Football Focus grade, which is 21st. His run defense grade is 35th with a 60.1, and then his pass rush grade is 18th with a 70.1. Again, better than Jonathan Allen in every category in a pretty significant jump. Again, overall grade 78th Jonathan Allen to 21st Daron Payne out of all defensive tackles, interior defensive linemen. And then run defense grade, Jonathan Allen 66th, Daron Payne 35th, and then pass rush grade, Jonathan Allen 68th and Daron Payne 18th. So Daron Payne's still way better than Jonathan Allen from what we've, and it kind of feels like it when you're watching the game. Like, you feel like Daron Payne has stood out more than Jonathan Allen. And so that, I guess that adds up, but still 21st overall. We're not paying you to be a 21st overall defensive tackle. And I mean, I know that's nitpicking Daron Payne when you have Jonathan Allen over there 78th, but I still think we need to hold Daron Payne to a higher level of accountability than even that, to higher expectations than that. And then, of course, Jonathan Allen 78th is absolutely insane. I mean, but he probably even knows that. And shouts out to Joe Wood Jr. for even calling these guys out. And then shouts out to @Jaden Daniels MVP for pointing out. He said, I understand that on film there are instances of Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne getting double teamed and generating some pressure, and you can admit that there are sometimes they have been double teamed quite a bit. And I even talked about live during the Giants game live show that I was doing, that like you can tell that they're just allowing our rushers to kind of, they're either double teaming them or they're just allowing them to penetrate, and it's kind of like away from the play. Like, if they know that we're gonna take the ball elsewhere, you can do all of this penetration and screaming up the field all you want, we're just gonna go around you and use that against you. But either way, continuing with Jay Daniels MVP, he said it does not excuse the fact that these two are getting paid big and account for a combined cap number of $43 million. I completely agree. They have to show up and prove their worth. But when we're even talking about double team, shouts out to Nick Ackridge of Pro Football Focus. He said Pro Football Focus has a way of looking at how often defenders are doubled in the run game, and Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen are both under 60%, with neither of them being in the top 15 of the highest percentage of double team defensive linemen, defensive tackles, whatever. So just to let you know, yes, they're being double teamed, but they're not even being double teamed the top 15th most out of all of the interior defensive linemen, just to let you know. So these guys need to play better. And then the fact on the other side, with our matchup coming up, Trey Hendrickson of the Cincinnati Bengals, he's first in QB pressure percentage, he's fifth in QB pressures, he's first in quick pressures, and he's first in get off time right now. This guy has been an elite defensive lineman, even though he's a defensive end and Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne are defensive tackles. Those are different positions, but still all on the defensive line. These guys really have no excuse, because Trey Hendrickson has made it work and they just haven't so far. And again, I'm mostly looking at Jonathan Allen, because Daron Payne again has not lived up to expectations, but Jonathan Allen, what is going on, man? And then before we even leave this whole defensive line thing, can Jamin Davis please be active this game? He played like 20% of the snaps against the Buccaneers and was easily our most efficient defensive lineman, making, I think he made like 3 plays at the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage in the run game. And then the Giants game, he's not even active. I'm very confused as to why that even happened. But either way, can Jamin Davis be active in this game coming Monday night? Now, moving on to Kliff Kingsbury, he's faced a lot of backlash this past week. We're not going to dive into all of it. I just want to point out some of the most notable ones. First of all, Bengals cornerback Cam Taylor-Britt talked about Jaden Daniels. He said, quote, compose. They don't make him do a lot, though. They keep it really simple for him. I heard his passing percentage is very high, but he's only throwing short, unquote. And honestly, that's a fair assessment of what Kliff Kingsbury's been doing with Jaden Daniels. I've already talked about it in other videos, though. I feel like it's a great way to get Jaden Daniels in rhythm, gain his confidence, and then you saw them open it up in that second half against the Giants, and then that's when he started throwing lasers all across the field and attacking more than just 10, 15 yards down the field and things like that. So I'm not worried about that, but that is a fair criticism of Kliff Kingsbury's offense for Jaden Daniels right now. A lot of it is behind the line of scrimmage, a lot of screens and things like that. So we can talk about, oh wow, look at Jaden Daniels' completion percentage, but a lot of his completions have been behind the line of scrimmage. But Kliff Kingsbury, even a couple of days later, responded to Bengals cornerback Cam Taylor-Britt, saying that his offense is basically just like a nice college offense, and that basically, he said in a nice way, Kliff Kingsbury is not coaching an NFL level offense and pretty much is gimmicky and all of this type of stuff. Kliff Kingsbury just simply said, quote, he's entitled to his opinion, unquote. It was that simple. But then now you also have the media getting down on Kliff Kingsbury, and I've seen a lot of criticism and critiques on his offense this past week, but I feel like probably the harshest was coming from the Minicom show with her, when her and Benjamin Solak were both just tearing apart Kliff Kingsbury's offense. But again, fair criticisms of his offense. Direct quote from them: the fact that the Commanders have not yet found a way to go three-step, land on the back foot, and get a one-on-one to Terry is astonishing. And they did like a full deep dive into his offense for like over a minute 20 of seconds. I mean, it's technically longer than that, but that's the clip that was going viral around Twitter. If you want to make sure you go check that out directly from Mina Kimes herself. And I agree with a lot of the replies that a lot of Commanders fans had from this. First of all, you have my boy Mike Hall from the Burgundy Zone. Make sure you go follow them on YouTube, follow them on Twitter, subscribe, all of that type of stuff. He said, once again, these national people show they don't have a pulse on the team because JD5 has missed a couple of deep shots to Terry, which would change this whole narrative. I completely agree. If he hits that deep shot to Terry McLaurin against the Buccaneers, we're probably not even having these discussions about Terry McLaurin needing to be involved more. And then also he said the fact that he brought up Dyami Brown winning on the outside, which hasn't happened going on for years now. I agree. Like, I feel like the criticism of the Kliff Kingsbury offense is fair overall, but the way that they dissected it, saying that Dyami Brown should get the ball more because he's winning outside more, I haven't necessarily seen that separation. And I love Dyami Brown. I've been rooting for him, even though his UNC team just got, I mean, just embarrassed by James Madison today. But either way, even in that preseason game where he had that deep bomb from Jaden Daniels, he didn't have any separation. That was just the most perfect of perfect throws by Jaden Daniels. So I'm not really seeing that, but maybe I got to rewatch the tape to see if Dyami Brown's getting open more than I think. And then the whole, like, Terry McLaurin, again, going back to Mike Hall's point, and I made this point either yesterday or the day before yesterday, that if we just hit that deep bomb to Terry, and then also that slant against the Giants that went for like 10, 15 yards, if that doesn't get called back because of a Nick Allegretti illegal man down the field, this whole narrative probably changes. So I don't feel like the criticism that Kliff Kingsbury is getting so far is necessarily warranted. I can see like the points they're making, but when you're looking at the advanced stats, now granted it's only 2 weeks into the season, but when you're looking at the advanced stats, Kliff Kingsbury has been going crazy. I did a whole video on that a couple of days ago. If you haven't seen it yet, go check it out because he's been going crazy overall. And then shouts out to Nick Ackridge of Pro Football Focus again. He said they're not entirely wrong, and nobody hates the death by a million screens more than me. I think it's a bit overkill right now, and I would agree with that. I feel like the screen thing is helping a lot with Jaden Daniels' confidence, but maybe tone it down a little bit. But I feel like just based on the trends of what we've seen through, if you split up the 2 games that we've had and a bunch of different halves, I think you've seen over the course of like the past 2-4 quarters that now they're really starting to kick it up another gear and attack deeper down the field. And then going back to Nick Ackridge, he said, but they've opened up a running game that has the 4th best EPA per play on an offense that currently has the 2nd highest scoring drive percentage in the NFL, all of which are true. Completely agree. Keep the screens, but maybe tone it down a little bit. Let's open up the offense some more, but maybe it's already naturally trending that way just based off of what we saw in that second half from the Giants is my point. Then shouts out to @yards_per_Gretch, GRETCH on Twitter. He says, strong discussion here about Kliff Kingsbury's horizontal raid and how it's holding back Daniels in the offense. Stark contrast to the Steichen with Anthony Richardson, who even in a down passing week 2 still led the week in attempted air yards. All fair points, and you got to realize that Jaden Daniels was easily the best deep ball throwing quarterback coming out of this draft, in my opinion. I don't even feel like it was necessarily really even close. I guess Michael Penix was like second, but Jaden Daniels I felt like was the clear-cut best deep ball thrower. You even saw a glimpse of that in the preseason, so it is a little crazy that we have not been attacking deep down the field as much as I expected. But, and again, to the fact that Anthony Richardson, even when he's been inefficient, they're still attacking deep down the field. But again, I think we're naturally working our way towards that just based off of what I saw in that second half versus the Giants. Also, shouts out to Grant Paulson. He said, on passing, scoring, and offense being down overall for the entire NFL. Just to let you know, this is not just a Commanders thing. This is the entire NFL thing, but I've been talking about this for the past week and a half. Teams are calling runs 41% of the time. That is the highest rate in 16 years. I get that they're calling those runs based on looks they are getting, but I still can't help but wonder if the decline of passing is somewhat self-inflicted. And you can argue, maybe in Kliff Kingsbury's case, even though this is the entire NFL problem for the most part, like majority of the NFL is seeing a decline in passing, especially a passing efficiency. You see Mel Kiper out here saying that we need to ban cover 2. Like, that's insane. How, I mean, it's no way we've reached that point. The defense is still at a disadvantage. The defenses have just figured out a way to kind of counterpunch a little bit, but it's not to the point we need to ban cover 2. It's not that serious. But either way, maybe in Kliff Kingsbury's case, maybe it is a little self-inflicted. Maybe we need to open up the offense a little bit more. Now, before we move on to the second half of this video, just to remind you, this show is provided by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino. If you're looking for a new sportsbook, it should be BetUS for sure, without a doubt, man. First of all, they have the fastest payouts in the industry. I know y'all want y'all money fast. I know I do. And right now, BetUS is offering you a 150% sign-up bonus on your first 3 deposits for up to $2,000 with code YouTube150. That's YOUTUBE150. And they have a fast and easy deposit and withdrawal process as well. So why not, man? And let's go ahead and take a look at their website and see what bets you can get into right now. More specifically, what's going on with this Commanders and Bengals game right now? Well, right now, we have plus 290 odds to beat the Bengals. If you have faith in the Washington Commanders, that Jaden Daniels and that offense can come out looking like the second half version of themselves from that Giants game, and if this defense can finally solve the struggles that they've been having, especially in coverage, but also bringing down the quarterback. Joe Burrow is not necessarily the most mobile quarterback doing it. Out of the first 3 weeks, including Daniel Jones and Baker Mayfield, you could argue Joe Burrow is the least mobile, but his pocket awareness is elite. So don't sleep on that. And they also have probably the best receivers we've played all year, and just Jamar Chase alone, and also the fact that T. Higgins is coming back. We're going to talk about that later in the video. But either way, if you have any faith that the Commanders can find a way to pull this out with the plus 290 odds, if you were to put down, say, $100 on us winning, you can end up winning $290 by the end of that game. Just put down 100 and get back 290. I like that bet. Or if you want to keep it simple, just put a quick little $10, nothing too crazy. You can end up winning $29 if we end up beating the Bengals. I'm rooting for us to beat the Bengals. And as always, man, please make sure you gamble responsibly. This is the type of bet I would definitely do. I may go ahead and put this in. And again, gamble responsibly. And let's go ahead and dive into the rest of this video, man. Now, going back to Kingsbury, because he had a chance to rebuttal against all of the criticism. Again, he spoke specifically to that Bengals corner and said he's entitled to his opinion. But even when talking about the offense and the rest of his press conference, more specifically Terry McLaurin, he mentioned several times in his press conference a couple of days ago that he needs to get Terry McLaurin the ball and more involved into the offense. He said Terry is one of the best players in the league, and he has to do basically a better job of getting them open himself. He's basically taking all of the blame himself, which I love from Kliff Kingsbury. That's a very mature way of going about it. When talking about Terry McLaurin's slow start to the season, he said, quote, "We got to find a way to get Terry more involved. That's on me. He's a fantastic player," unquote. Shouts out to him for that. And it's crazy too, because just a few days ago in practice, you see Jaden Daniels throwing a beautiful deep ball to Terry McLaurin. We've been seeing this all off season, joint practices, regular training camp practices against our own defense. But again, even like the Dolphins defense and the Jets defense, you saw Jaden Daniels doing this to Terry McLaurin. So I'm just trying to figure out why we have not yet seen this in regular season games. It's there. The potential is there. The chemistry even seems to be there. And again, they reminded you of that by the Commanders even posting a practice clip just from a couple of days ago this week, leading up to the Bengals game after the Giants game. I'm emphasizing this because this happened after the Giants game. This was very recent. Jaden Daniels throwing a nice deep ball to Terry McLaurin. The chemistry is there. Let's just utilize that in a game. And then Kliff Kingsbury also talking about Terry McLaurin. He said, quote, "Jaden executed the offense beyond what we could have anticipated for a rookie in his first 2 starts." I would agree. I'm not worried about that connection. Terry deserves the ball. He's one of the best players in the league, unquote. And he also said that it's his job to make it work. So he's basically taking the blame from Jaden. He's taking the blame away from Terry McLaurin. He said, "Everybody look at me. It's up to me to get that going." And if anything, Jaden Daniels has been even better than I expected through the first 2 weeks. So again, shouts out to Kliff Kingsbury for that type of mentality. Also, shouts out to my boy at Commanders Realm, because I completely 100% agree right here with what he said. He said, "Here's my thing with the whole Terry McLaurin discussion." He said his first point was rank them where you may, but the consensus from the 2020 to 2023 was top 10, right? Since then, many wide receivers have come into the league, and I think ranking him from the 12 to 20 range is more accurate for now. I'm with him. Then he also goes on to say, but the question I will always put forth is, how good would the 15 or so wide receivers you think ranked ahead of him would be if they spent their last 5 seasons in Washington with what he's had to deal with? Completely agree right there as well. And then his third and final point, because a good number of those guys would not have done what Terry did these past 5 years if they were in this situation. And that's the reality of it. I completely agree 100% with Commanders Realm. So don't give up on Terry just just yet, especially if you're a Commanders fan. And I hope that I don't think this team has either. I think it's just the first couple of weeks, new offense, new everything. We're the newest team in the NFL by far. I don't think you can get any newer going from the 2023 Commanders to the 2024 Commanders unless you were just a whole brand spanking new expansion team that just got created by the NFL this season. I don't think you can get any newer than this in just one offseason. So there are going to be some growing pains. And like the point that I brought up in one of my previous videos this week, I don't even remember the exact day because I've done so many videos and I'm also been so busy even outside of making videos. But my point was, especially in that film session I did about Terry McLaurin, why Terry McLaurin's not getting open. Make sure you go check that out. Or is it, whose fault is it? Why is Terry McLaurin not getting the ball? Is he not getting open? Is Jaden not seeing him? Is the offensive line not giving him enough time? Is it Kliff Kingsbury's fault? Is it the opposing defense making sure they stop Terry McLaurin first and foremost? It's a nice, you can hand out like a percentage to each of those points because all of those points basically play a part in as to why Terry McLaurin is off to this slow start right now. But Terry McLaurin is not completely devoid of blame. I do want to point that out. But my main point is that even in plays where, maybe you could have thrown Terry McLaurin the ball right there, it's another guy making a good play. It's not like our offense just been inefficient. We're top 5 in most of the advanced statistics when it comes to offensively, especially like efficiency wise, like EPA per play measurements and things like that. So it's not like, oh, Terry McLaurin's not getting the ball and this offense is just plain desert, just terrible and trash because we're not getting Terry McLaurin the ball. No, our offense has been very efficient. It's been top 5 offense efficiency in the NFL so far and a lot of different metrics. This run game is dominant, especially adding in Jaden Daniels' legs and the extension of the run game in the screens that we call that sometimes work if just receivers block better. And I'm looking at Luke McCaffrey and Terry McLaurin when I say that because y'all need to block better on these receiver screens. But either way, my main thing is, even though Terry McLaurin isn't getting the ball very much, it's not like other guys aren't stepping up in his place to keep this offense going. So I want Terry McLaurin more involved for sure, but it's not like you can look at our offense and be like, man, we're terrible because we haven't gotten Terry McLaurin the ball. We could definitely be better once we get Terry McLaurin the ball, but it's not like we've been terrible without him. Now, also moving on before we go, Dan Quinn had a few things to say in his press conference a couple of days ago. So we have some things that he said a couple of days ago, and then we have a few things to talk about that he brought up today, and we're going to also bring up the injury report that was finalized today. So a couple of days ago, he said there will be more opportunities for Terry McLaurin and the team. They need to find a way to get him to move around more. And Dan Quinn also said that Jaden can't just force stuff to Terry when it's not there as well. I completely agree there. Do not force it. Get him more involved, but do it in a smart way, in an efficient way. And then also Dan Quinn said he wouldn't be surprised that he wasn't surprised that Robinson was as good as he was overall, but he said that he didn't know how good his hands were specifically. He knew he was a competitor, but pleased to see how how complete he is as a player, as a running back. And I've been telling y'all this for at least over the past year, just from those signs that we were seeing, even in that Eric Bieniemy offense that wasn't good, how explosive Brian Robinson was in the passing game. Then Dan Quinn also said that Johnny Newton will be able to play more snaps on Monday against the Bengals. He was limited to only 12 against the Giants, so I'm really excited to see what he does with more snaps. He also said that Newton provided energy. He can get upfield, but also still needs experience. So the more he plays, the better he'll become. Now, if you look on the screen right now, moving all the way up to today, Saturday, September 21st, here is your full-blown injury report. Starting with the Bengals, it looks like tight end Tanner Hudson is out. It looks like defensive tackle Sheldon Rankin is out. And then BJ Hill is doubtful. All of those benefit us mightily right now because this offensive line, I'm still a little worried about it, and Jaden Daniels and stuff like that. So the more defensive linemen that are out for them, the better, because even Chris Jenkins is questionable. And then safety Von Bell, who hasn't participated in practice since Thursday when he was limited, is also questionable. And that could be a huge help for the Commanders offense if he's not able to go. Then everybody else is good to go. You have Joe Burrow good to go. Mike Gesicki, I forgot he even went to the Bengals. And then T. Higgins is making his return. Like, I mean, suddenly when he's playing the Commanders, now suddenly I'm healthy again. You can even see it from this meme. Shouts out to @for whom J Bell tolls. Here's the meme that he put up. He said, T. Higgins seeing the Commanders defense on the schedule. And that's exactly what it feels like, man. But going back to the injury report, then Amarius Mims, my Georgia Bulldog, he was limited in practice most of the week, but he practiced in full Saturday, and he looks like he's pretty good to go. But on the Commander side, we have some very notable things. First of all, our only out is Cleveland Farrell, but I do want to point out the fact that he is not only our sack leader, he's the only guy with sacks on the entire team right now. We have 2 2 sacks on the entire season, which is bad, and Clelin Ferrell has been the only 2. He's all 2 of them. Now, again, I do want to point out the fact that Daron Payne had pressures that led to both of those Clelin Ferrell sacks, but still, not having the only guy that has sacks on your team right now going against the Bengals is a little scary, especially with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and that passing attack, and the fact that T. Higgins is coming back. And don't sleep on Mike Gesicki. Do not sleep on Mike Gesicki at tight end, man. Also, Dan Quinn talked about the team after we got the injury report at some point today. He said Javonte Jean-Baptiste and Johnny Newton particularly stood out to him this week, and with Ferrell out, it's likely that both players will get more snaps on Monday. I'm excited to see how they handle that. And then Dan Quinn also told the reporters, as far as Clelin Ferrell's injury, that his knee hasn't improved as they hoped to this point, so he'll be out Monday. And he said that the injury is not a long-term issue, but he is uncomfortable with it right now. And then as far as Emmanuel Forbes, as you can see, he's questionable. He said Emmanuel Forbes has a better chance to return in week 4, but the door is open for him to return Monday, and was able to practice some following his thumb surgery over a week ago. So I don't think we'll see him against the Bengals, but it's not like he's definitively out like Clelin Ferrell. And then also, just to let you know, this week's captains will be Olamide Zaccheaus, Bobby Wagner, and Tress Way. Again, they change from week to week, so who knows who the captains will be going into that week 4 game, but those are your captains going into this week 3 game against the Bengals Monday night. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section, let me know if you feel about everything discussed in this video. Please stiff on that like button, stiff on the subscription button, stiff on the bell next to that subscription button. Make sure you do not leave this video without leaving a like, and of course, let me know in the comment section how you feel about Joe Wood Jr. calling out Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen, 2 of our 3 highest paid players on the entire team. How do you feel about the Kliff Kingsbury criticism that he's been receiving from opposing team players and media members? Again, we only talked about one group of media members. It's been all over the place. I just wanted to point out one of the more notable criticisms they had of him, but it's been all over the internet. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video, the injury updates that we have, T. Higgins returning. Do you think we can deal with that? Do you think we have the equipment to cover both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins? Do you think even without Clelin Ferrell, we can get the pass rush to disrupt Joe Burrow? Let me know how you feel about all of that, of course. And before we go, just to remind you, this video was sponsored by BetUS Sportsbook and Casino. And please make sure you gamble responsibly, man. If you don't do nothing else, make sure you do that. Leave a like on the way out. I appreciate y'all. Catch y'all later. I'm out.